Thank you. Can you hear me? This is, move it closer. I'm still getting coaching from Judith. And I had my green pen that was so kindly given to me. I was going through my talk just here, writing up all the side notes with my green pen. Anyway, so what I want to do is I'm so happy to be here. I really am. I was so honored to be invited to talk about my work with Judith. And what I want to do is focus on 3 moments in my early relationship with Judith, because these were really formative moments, and talk about the ways in which my relationship with her intersected with my development at the time and how important she was in shaping the future direction of the kinds of questions and the kind of research I did. And there's both a process story and a content story, and I want to kind of weave them together. As context, I was applying to graduate school in the late 1980s after having spent a number of years as a union organizer in the bowels of nursing homes in Cincinnati, Ohio, and in Kentucky. And I considered myself a Marxist feminist. I was out there. I said, this is as good as it gets. I was organizing these poor workers, and I was fighting nasty bosses who were really nasty, and they were nickel and diming me for on bargaining and trying to take away health care insurance of nursing home workers. And I was exhausted, and I said, really, is this as good as it gets? And I started questioning my assumptions, my rules of thumb, the things that I had learned as an activist for about 15 years. And I said, I need to stop. I need to take a break. I really need to rethink this project. And so it's at that time I said, okay, I'm going to go and try to do some intellectual work and research on labor and employment policy. And I started by going to Cornell, the planning school, where I talked to people, and the graduate students immediately said to me, don't come here, go to work with Judith Tendler at MIT. And I said, okay. I didn't know Judith, but I came up here intimidated, and fortunately had a wonderful conversation, and the next year I was here. And so this first moment of me kind of opening myself up to new questions and new ways of thinking about the world, I was nervous because I thought going back to an elitist graduate school meant getting involved with some old codger and doing his, theoretical box and sticking my head in the corner for 6 years. And so I was very nervous, and God bless Judith, she was right there to allow me to breathe. And so this moment was really about process. It was about questioning, right? And I wanted to question everything. She had more questions than I did. She was way outpacing me on that score. Questioning assumptions, questioning authority, questioning conventional wisdom, and pushing me to find the interesting cracks and dilemmas and contradictions that we could explore in research. So this period was about process, and the additional dimension of process was the idea that you look for positive examples to see innovation. I thought this was quaint. Here I've been, in the trenches, and all I want to do is dig up dirt on bad bosses, and here's Judith saying, well, where are the positive examples? And then I realized what a powerful analytical approach that was, because it allowed us to build positive examples of worker participation and union involvement in ways that could produce positive results rather than focusing on the negative. So that was a first aha in my development. The second moment was the next year when I started working in the field with Judith in 1989 in Ceará. And she gave me this wonderful opportunity to work on a World Bank project looking at local economic development and agricultural productivity in the Ceará and Bahia regions. And at this point, she was exploring these debates around decentralization and participation in community projects. And she was questioning the literature. There was a kind of simplistic version, as you all know, out there about how wonderful participation is under all conditions and every circumstance. And so in this moment, the second moment, it was both the process and the content of the research that really gave me new insights. The process was that research was absolutely about discovery. It was open-ended, it was messy, you went out in the field, you allowed people to speak to you in their own voices, resonated with what I did with workers in organizing them prior to this, but she also pushed us to confront the conventional theory and the conventional wisdom in ways that we were able to bring to light the new ways of thinking about participation and decentralization in this project. But what was also important for me, and the kind of aha, was that the way she was thinking about participation allowed me to see the parallel worlds in organizing in the workplace and organizing in communities. Now, this probably is a taken for granted understanding at this point, but for me it wasn't. 20 years ago it wasn't. For me it was this aha, that we could develop frameworks for understanding grassroots participation and mobilization that went across different worlds. And it was particularly important because she helped me through this project understand the conditions under which it's not just a simplistic version, but it's the relationships, the understanding of mobilization at the grassroots, coupled with the importance of good government and management, and the demand side of what was happening with clients, and challenging the local power structures and understanding the relationships of power at the grassroots level that would enable us to build, or people to build, new institutions that create effective participation. And this story of the complexity of participatory forms resonated for me in the workplace as well as in the community. The third moment was a continuation of this story in which I was now, a couple of years later, looking at doing my dissertation, and I couldn't follow Judith into the field in Brazil as I originally intended because of different family issues. I had to stay in the US. And I started focusing on these issues in the US. And at the time, Judith was taking these ideas and moving into the world of looking at labor in the public sector. And she was bringing labor back into development studies. And this was such an important and seminal work that all of you know. It's the series of world development articles she did, and then Good Government in the Tropics. And I Googled good government in the tropics for this session, and it's all over the web. There are websites, Good Government in the Tropics, and there are summaries of her books on these various planning websites, and it's like, well, I knew it was important, but I saw even, 18 years later, or 15 years later, the importance of it. At this moment, there were a couple of pieces that were salient to me. In the terms of the process of research, what was important is her style of crossing borders. Her incredible way of going across disciplines.